It's the Trash Player League. Let's get it. Hello and good evening. Welcome to FLCN. We are officially in the final week of the regular season for the Trash Player League. Week 13 is in the books. And so we finally have some clarity on who is making the playoffs. And in this final week, we will see how the seeding actually plays out. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And let's start out by saying hello to my co-host, Rickey Scott. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Well, I got locked out this week. We both did. So, it is what it is. It was a long shot, but that long shot is over. So, it is what it is. But otherwise, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm already looking toward next season. I mean, it is what it is. Can't do nothing else. Coming in last place, even at this point, don't matter to me. If you don't make the playoffs, it don't matter. We don't have any constellation prizes or loser bracket. Coming in last place, you get like a penalty or something. So it really don't matter.
Well, Ricky Bobby's daddy said, if you're not first, you last. So it really don't matter.
I guess next year I'm going to try to have to put a cougar in the car and see if I can win.
See if you can make it. Yeah, man.
See if I can make it.
All right, man. Same, man. Next year I might change my team name to Shake and Bake. See how that works.
Hey, that might have to be the move to get you the W. That might have to be the move.
Yeah, because whatever I did this season wasn't the move. But anyway, we're going to get into that right now by starting with the 3 and out. And like always, what the 3 and out is. We're going to talk about 3 major points or 3 major keys to the victory. Then we're going to move on to the next matchup. So with that being said, let's get into it now. Excuse me. So for week 13's matchup was fuck fantasy football gods, or explicit word fantasy football gods versus your player got hurt. BoomerBus to Raw Dog Supreme. He defeats him. Labarticus Prime defeats Corey's championship team. Big Trust defeats FTW. We Not From 750 defeats Indie Animals. And I Love Cam Newton defeats Reese's Buttercups. And actually, I said that backwards. We Not From 750 took the L to Indiana. So I apologize on that one. All right. So we're just going to start from the bottom. Since we're here. And I Love Cam Newton defeats Reese's Buttercups 96.42 to 65.96. I do believe 65.96 is the lowest point total on the year thus far. And this may very well be the lowest winning score on the season thus far. Well, but like I said, I Love Cam Newton gets away with the victory here. And as we can see, as we get into it, neither quarterback had their best days here. Both only scoring 12 points. The only difference was at the decimals here. That's a huge deal, seeing how these were 2 highly touted quarterbacks, and neither has shown up this week. Dak Prescott with 238 passing yards, 1 passing TD, and 1 interception. And on the flip side, Patrick Mahomes had 184 yards and 1 rushing TD and 1 interception. So, ugly day for both gentlemen there. Moving on to the next point, Cooper Kupp always showing up, and Odell Beckham actually gets a receiving score on this day here. Cooper Kupp is still my MVP for fantasy football season. He had 8 receptions, 129 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. And on the flip side, there was no help for Reese's Buttercup's team. Adam Thielen, who got injured, only had a reception. It doesn't even show a yard, just shows a reception. He caught a ball in this game. And then Terry McLaurin had 3 receptions for 22 yards in a victory against Las Vegas. Both of these gentlemen combined for only 6 points for Reese's Buttercup team. So it's when you look at these point totals here, it's not hard to see what happened when it came to her score. And on the last point, I'm just going to take you right into I'm going to take you into her tight end position. Zach Ertz, who had a big week earlier in the season. Well, I believe right before the bye, he had a big week, and now he comes back off the bye and only gets 1 reception for 10 receiving yards, despite Arizona having a huge score. And like I said, this tells you all you need to know about why she came away with such a low score. She was an easy dub this week, as they say out there. And I Love Cam Newton was the benefactor on the week. Do you have anything to say before we look at the bench to see if anything could have changed the fate?
Yeah, both of these teams are really, really terribly put together. If you look at it, it's amazing that I Love Cam Newton was even to walk away with such a score as 96 points, seeing that Cooper Kupp and David Montgomery are the only ones who really put up points with those pretty much 30 points performances between the both of them. That was the bulk of the team. He had a Philly running back, Boston Scott, who put up 0 points. I don't even think he played because he was sick. And this man still won't get rid of Jacoby Myers with his amazing 0 points that he contributed. But I guess seeing that, the weather conditions were so horrible and the game was already won on Sunday, he really didn't need to replace him. But they could come back to bite him in the ass, since we had that talk, off air about him possibly being able to sneak in if he had enough points going into this.
Yeah. We've been talking about it all season, about those point totals mattering, and particularly when it came to I Love Cam Newton and his wins, because oftentimes throughout the season, even though he's won, he left points on the bench a lot. And so let's look at the bench here today. And today he left points on the bench with his quarterback position, and Taysom Hill scoring 23.66. I really don't think there's a world I would have started Taysom Hill, especially not over Dak Prescott. But it is what it is. That's kind of really interesting that Dak Prescott walks away with the W in this game, but yet he had the lower fantasy score versus Taysom Hill. That's very interesting. And on the flip side, Reese's Buttercup, she left Taylor Heineke on the bench, who had a higher score than Patrick Mahomes, but I'm not doing that. And she also left Conklin on the bench, who who had a really good day, 7 receptions, 56 yards. I believe that he had a few other good days throughout the season. Let's look at what his season has been. Oh, okay. So the 2 weeks before, he had 6-4, and the week before that he had 16. So understandable why he was left on the bench here. All right. So anything to say about these bench positions?
There was nothing either of these guys can do, so we can just move on.
All righty. So moving right along, now we are getting into We Not From 750 versus the Indie Animals. Sir, take it away.
All right, so we go into this match of We Not From 750 with the score of 85.6. versus Indiana's 137.96. Now, the first thing we want to look at is usually the tale of all tales for all these matches this season for some reason, and that's the quarterback play. If we look over at Mac Jones might as well just have been on the bench. He contributed absolutely nothing. With 19 passing yards and 3 rushing yards, he gave him a very, very, very low 0.46 score in comparisons to Indiana's team, who's actually had a lot of quarterback issues this year. It looks like Tua Tagovailoa might have been the person he's been looking for. He walked away with 20.86 points for 2 passing touchdowns, 244 passing yards, and he got sacked twice, but it didn't really do too much to take away from him, even with those sacks. The second thing I want to look at is this man's wide receiver play on the We're Not From 750 team. It seems to keep being his issue throughout this entire season. Amari Cooper did come back. It was a risky move to play. I know he got very little practice this week, but he was able to put up 2 receptions for 41 yards and give him 6.10 points. That's still not quite what you really want from your wide receiver at the very least. In PPR format, you want to walk away with a good, 12 through 15, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
He went in with AJ Green, and I hate to say it, if you're not DeAndre Hopkins or Kyler Murray on that team, it's kind of hard to put my trust in you at all. So I guess AJ Green was a desperation play, and it really didn't pull out for him. We look on the other side of that. We had Keenan Allen walk away with 22.40 points, and Stephon Diggs with a 9.10, which really wasn't the greatest performance. But if anybody was able to, weather the storm of that horrible Monday Night Football game, you could see the weather was literally the issue for walking away with any type of points in that game. Other than that, there's not really much else to point out. I know this is supposed to be a quick 3 and out, but when you just look at it, I guess the third point is Indianapolis just has the more superior team. They're more consistent with the scoring. Madison came through with a good 21.40, seeing that Dalvin Cook is out for the next 2 weeks. And then he was actually smart by picking up his handcuffs and Sonny Michel for Darrell Henderson, and it paid off. We could look at the bench to see if there's anything that could have helped. But to be honest, from how this man's We're Not From 750's bench been all year, I highly doubt it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Looking at what we had here in this matchup, AJ Green, we mentioned this right before the playoffs started, that or at least before the trading closed, that he needed to get a receiver because AJ Green wasn't it. And he got Amari Cooper, then Amari Cooper got hurt. That wasn't enough. He still needed to do more, figure out more about that situation, but he didn't. Now, let's look at the bench and see if anything would have changed the fate here. Absolutely not. The bench has nothing for either side. I just want to point out that Indianapolis had a long list of buys on his side. So that's about it. And Aaron Rodgers was on bye for We're Not From 750. Let me ask you, man, how do you feel about these late season buys?
They don't bother me. Not to be funny, by this time of the year, you either know the buys are coming, or by now you've had breakout candidates that you've had the choice to get up out of the waivers. That's how it pretty much goes every year. A lot of the usual better teams or high ranking teams usually end up having their buys later in the season, like the Patriots and so forth. So, I mean, you kind of know what's coming, so you got to prepare for it. It's part of the game. Yeah.
Well, I had a thought just and it's not just for fantasy purposes, but for the NFL purposes, that I personally do not like these late season buys because I feel as though the late season buys are part of the issue when it comes to teams not finishing the season healthy. Because teams I feel as though you want to get them that break somewhere around the midpoint where they could get their guys in, get them that break and, give them that rest so they could come back for the second half stronger. And this just isn't it. You know what I mean? And this late, we are 4 or 5 games out from the season being over. So you went 14 weeks of playing straight football without a rest. That's not. I don't really think that's cool. And I feel as though there is a solution to it. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Between, I would say between week 6 and week 10, you could get 8 teams a break every week and knock out the bye weeks in four short weeks.
Ooh, but for fantasy purposes, that would be horrible. Look at the first week that we had the apocalypse. That was maybe 8 teams, and everybody was hurting on that one. So I mean, going through a few weeks of that would be bad for fantasy and be bad for business for the NFL.
Well, but for fantasy purposes, yes. But for the NFL, you are only talking about 4 matchups a week that's not being played. Because 8 teams a week, those teams would theoretically be head to head. So you're only talking about missing out on 4 matchups a week. So
4 matchups with 8 different markets, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
You're going to miss out on them at some point in the season anyway. So that money's missing regardless. It's just that that's not in that portion of it. I don't see the issue as of right now, because either way, their bye is coming at some point. It's just you're knocking them out in a more condensed, reasonable fashion versus spreading them out all season. Not every game can be watched all at once. So, in fact, that might help. In fact, that might help some markets where that now there's not so many games being played at once that people will watch those other games.
I don't know, Mark. Football is pretty tribal, so a lot of people aren't watching anybody if it's not their teams. But again, that's true. Again, you're right. It's something we could explore and see how it works. You don't know until you try it.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the next matchup, we have Big Trust versus FTW. Big Trust scores 171.52 to FTW's 100.10. This is the second low score that FTW has put up. It seems as though he is losing steam here down the stretch. And now let's look at the reasons why. First point always comes down to the quarterbacks. Tom Brady put on the show, 36.62 points, 368 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Had an excellent day despite a very ugly pick 6 to the Atlanta Falcons. And Matthew Stafford here on the other side, 29.50, 3 passing touchdowns, 295 passing yards, and he took a sack on a day. These 2 quarterbacks played a hell of a game. Tom Brady just played the better one. To the next point, always comes down to the wide receivers for me, especially when time you're dealing with Tobias's team, the team Big Trust. Their duo here, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, combined for 46 points here. You had 30 points for Chris Godwin, 16.90 for Mike Evans. Mike Evans has 7 receptions for 99 yards, no touchdown. And Chris Godwin had 15 receptions, 143 receiving yards, and 9 rushing yards. These guys, they blew it up. They showed up and showed out. Michael Pittman had a sighting this week with 6 receptions, 33 rushing yards, and 77 receiving yards. But he did not have much help. Brandon Cooks and Brandon Ayuk combined for 16 points together, 8 points each. Brandon Cook only had 3 receptions this week for 38 receiving yards. is 16 rushing touchdowns. And Brandon Ayuk only had 3 receptions for 55 yards, despite no Deebo Samuel. All those points, all that attention Brandon Ayuk did not receive much of it when it came to the San Francisco 49ers. It actually went to George Kittle, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But for Team Big Trust, he finally decided to start trusting in T. Higgins, and T. Higgins rewarded him with 9 receptions, 138 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. And for my final point on the week here is just that FTW, he's been struggling with running backs as of late, and it reflects in the score. Mark Ingram didn't do nothing for him, despite being the sole back for New Orleans this week with Alvin Kamara out. And Devin Booker got 9 points, but he's still playing behind Saquon Barkley. So this is probably the best outcome you could hope for from Devin Booker, seeing how Saquon Barkley is back and starting. And on the flip side, Big Trust actually has Saquon Barkley, who gave him 13.40, and James Conner, who is having a little bit of a rebirth as of late, has 75 rushing yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and 36 receiving yards. So that gave him a point total of 19.10 there. Is there anything that you would like to say about this matchup before we move on?
No, it just looks like the FTW stands for fuck trying to win at this point. That's all I got.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I like it. Yeah. So looking at the bench, like I said, Alvin Kamara is hurt. Jalen Hurts is hurt. And Jerry Jeudy is just sitting on his bench with 11.70 points. So there was absolutely nothing he could have did to change this point total here. And this week, Big Trust has started all the right people. This is not a common occurrence for him. He tends to have, particularly when it comes to the flex position, he tends to start the wrong guy every week. And this time he chose correctly. So good for him on that one. Moving on, we go to the highest point total of the week, Labarticus Prime versus Corey Championship Team. Take it away, sir.
All right. As you can see, the score was this is the highest scoring game that we had of the week. Labarticus Prime walked away with 174.18 points versus Corey's champions, 144.52 points. The first thing I want to look at is the running back situation. Corey's champion really didn't have much to work with this week. I believe he did play the best possible running backs he could, but ultimately it came down to trusting Myles Gaskin with the newly acquired, oh my God, what's his name? I forgot. Dude from Houston. Used to play for Denver. Wow, I drew a blank. His name doesn't matter at the moment, but he took away carries from him.
Running back?
That alone. What's his name? Philip Lindsay. With the addition of Philip Lindsay in that backfield, that hurt him a lot. He took away some carries that Gaskins need. Gaskins usually is a volume running back, and he didn't get that with Philip Lindsay being there and them shifting between the two. He walked away with 44 rushing yards, 2 receptions, and 5 reception yards, which isn't very good. Usually he walks away with a lot more than that, especially in these past few weeks. But then again, Devontae Parker being back could take away from him getting receptions as well. So a combination of those two, Myles Gaskin probably wasn't the pick he wanted to go in, but Corey didn't really have much to work with. For the second point I want to look at is, once again, quarterback play. And this time that's partnered up with wide receiver play in this case. He had Lamar Jackson with Hollywood Brown. And, well, if you guys got to see that Pittsburgh game, that game was pretty freaking horrible. Lamar Jackson has not been performing very, very well these last few showings. I want to say maybe the last 4 to 5 showings. He's been throwing pick after pick. He hasn't been able to get the ball to his receivers, and it's just been a horrible roller coaster for him in fantasy world. And, well, I can't really say in the real football world because he's walked away with a lot of wins, even though the quarterback play hasn't been the best. Marquise Brown didn't do much for him. As you can see, he has 55 receiving yards and 5 receptions. That's not going to do it, especially when you turn to the other side and you have Justin Herbert playing freaking monkey in the middle with Keenan Allen and catching his own touchdowns this week. You got CeeDee Lamb and Tyler Lockett both putting up a very, very, very solid performance of 19.20 and 19.80. And then you got Jamal Williams finally getting the backfield to himself and him walking away with a huge 29.80. It seems like Labartimus Prime always has 1 or 2 players who have at least 30 points. And this week he got it at his running back position and his quarterback play. And it's not much you could do when everything's running on the best possible conditions it can. And for what is this, like the 13th week in a row? That's pretty much what's happened for Labartimus Prime. Corey did put up numbers that would have defeated anyone else in this league easily, but unfortunately he ran into the lucky Lombardus, so it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the biggest takeaway here is that Corey's championship team put out a valiant effort this week. Labartimus Prime just showed up and showed out yet again. Which I find very interesting because Labartimus Prime, through the first 4 weeks of the season, he had one of the best records, but the lowest point total all season. And then he flipped that around. And now he has the highest points for in the best record. So kudos to him. Let's look at the bench, see if anything would have changed. Kirk Cousins would have definitely given him some points, but that's about it. Kirk Cousins was his only option here. And on the other side, no, like it doesn't really matter on the other side at all. So moving on to the next matchup, which is BoomerBus versus Raw Dog Supreme. BoomerBus scores 142.50 to 125.52. BoomerBus may have very well locked up his playoff position with the win this week. Josh Allen has a horrible day with 12.70 points, and Carson Wentz inexplicably has a horrible day because he has no blizzard as his excuse. He has 12.62 points on the other side. And he went against a terrible team in Houston. So I do not understand the reasoning for this. It just wasn't his day here. I guess, but they didn't really need much from him, seeing how they were going up against it in that Houston. So moving on from that point, Mike Williams has a sighting this week. 5 receptions for 110 yards to the flip of Jalen Waddle, 9 receptions for 90 yards. DeAndre Hopkins comes back after multiple weeks of being missing in action due to injury, and he does not do much, but he does enough compared to Tyreek Hill here. Tyreek Hill only had 4 points compared to DeAndre Hopkins 11. But it all came down to this guy at the end, George Kittle. George Kittle has 39.60 points. This is a tight end, everyone. So this score here just pretty much made the day for BoomerBus. He had 9 receptions, 181 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Like, when you have him on your team, that's pretty much all you need. And that carried BoomerBus across the victory this week because George Kittle was definitely all boom. Do you have anything else to say, Ricky, about this matchup?
So not much to really say. The weak point for the other team, Raw Dog Supreme's team, was his running back game. I'm pretty sure he's missing that rookie Michael Carter right about now because Johnson's not doing it for the Jets. I'm actually really really, really not that mad. There's not much he really could have done. The only concern that I keep having is his, I don't know if it's just lack of tight ends or just lack of him carrying the Kyle Pitts play. I don't understand why he keeps going to him. It's just not there. In real football, Kyle Pitts has had a hell of a rookie season, but for fantasy purposes, he's been very, very mediocre. I figured he would have moved away from him by now and picked up another tight end. There's been plenty of good ones out there, but it is what it is.
Yeah. There hasn't been much boom from Kyle Pitts, and there has been guys that has given that boom. But I mean, Kyle Pitts hasn't been low for the tight end position. I guess he's just been average for the tight end position. And if he's going to stay average throughout the season at that position, I guess that's all you can really ask for.
Fair enough.
So looking at the bench to see if anything would have changed their fate. And right away, we see some things that may have helped here. He would have definitely got at least 9 more points from Moore here if he had played him over DeAndre Hopkins. But it's DeAndre Hopkins who's doing that. That's not happening. Sorry about that. Anyway, are you kidding? Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, and he would have got a few more points if he had played Russell Wilson over Carson Wentz, but I'm not doing that, especially when Carson Wentz is going up against Houston. So understand the plays that he made, they just didn't work out for him this week. And on the flip side, BoomerBus did not go with Mike Davis this week. He sat him on the bench, and Mike Davis actually showed up. So that's unfortunate, but BoomerBus didn't need him because George Kittle was there to save the day. And there was an ultra rare sighting from Russell Gage. It didn't really matter to the score as much, but I just want to point that out that that Gage showed up. You almost never see him. That's a very big confidence play by BoomerBus. So, anyway, moving on to our last matchup of the day between you and I, Rickey. Explicit Word Fantasy Football Guides scores 115.92 to 105 flat for your player got hurt. Do you want to take this away and go ahead and talk about it?
Yeah, the first thing we can get into is Kyler Murray coming back nice and fresh after being gone for about a good month or so. He came in and did what Kyler Murray's been doing all season, and that's put up points, 34.32 to be exact. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's probably quarterback 2 for the week. I think Tom Brady might have been the only other quarterback that's getting more points than him. Don't quote me on that. We'd have to look it up to see. Second thing that I want to point out is the big fat 0 on my side. Rashad Bateman. I don't know what happened. He wasn't hurt. He was on the field, but he got no real looks and nothing happened. That right there did me in for the most part. I was expecting at least a safe floor for him to at least put up that 10.7 he had there, but that didn't happen. Ultimately, that's the biggest reason I lost. Everything else was, in my opinion, was pretty much even. I had Joe Burrow. You had Jamar Chase. So if one of them would have did good, they more than likely both of them did good. So that would have canceled out. Deontay Johnson, surprisingly, was the difference for me to keep up with you with Kyler Murray. I wasn't expecting him to put up 30, and I damn sure don't think you were expecting him to put up 30. So that kind of evened out. Going all the way down for the rest of it, everything's pretty much even across the board. So it looks like that big 0 is the reason I lost. And to be honest, I don't think there's much I could have did to change that, to be honest. So that's about it.
Yeah, no. That 0, that unexplainable 0 is a big deal. But I do want to point out that on the other side, there is an explainable reason for a low number of James Robinson in Jacksonville. I am personally a fan of James Robinson because I'm a fan of the undrafted guy that shows up and can actually play. Like, I like to see those guys because I know their road to get to actually being on the playing field is a very difficult one, especially in the NFL. And this is a prime example as to why it is so difficult for the undrafted guy. James Robinson has done nothing but perform for this team all season. And you look at his tape last year, that's all he's done. And Urban Meyer seemingly does not have any love for the guy. They went out and drafted Trevor Siemian, whatever the running back's name is that they drafted in the offseason that was supposed to start, but then he got hurt. They drafted that running back, and he got hurt before the season. And early in the season, they tried not to give many looks to James Robinson and tried to work Carlos Hyde in the first 2 to 3 games or whatever. And then they figured out James could actually play. All to come down to this week where James Robinson, he fumbles on like his first 2 to 3 possessions, and they pull him from the game, and only to watch Carlos Hyde stink it up for the next 5 possessions. And then when Carlos Hyde fumbles, they put him back in with like a minute left, and he gets 5 carries with like a minute left in the game or so. Like, they seemingly just treat James Robinson like trash, and there's been a lot of questions as to what's going on there this week. That's been asked directly to Urban Meyer and asked actually to the running back himself. So it seems to be trouble there, and fans in that area are not letting it go by lightly. If anybody's actually interested in looking up some NFL drama, just look up the Jacksonville running back situation. You will see different interviews where it's pretty much a blame game going on down there.
I was under the impression that going into the game, James Robinson was having like heel issues and something else.
Well, you are also a follower of Pro Football Doc, and I believe, and Pro Football Doc put out a new video tonight that was explaining running back situation. He was like, well, a heel injury in general is not going to be something that's going to hinder running backs. He said that he is of the belief that is something that they're kind of hiding behind, because running backs run on the ball of their feet. They don't run on their heels. And he was like, he watched the film, he saw explosiveness in James Robinson and didn't see explosiveness in Carlos Hyde. So he felt as though the benching was kind of inexplicable. And he also talked too about the favoritism stuff that tends to go on in the NFL as well.
Well, not to go too much into this, but don't you need your heel to block?
Yes, you do need to be able to plant your feet to block, or you could step into it to block, which is still would be like pressing, but that would be pressing on the ball of your feet. But planting and being stiff would be, that would deal more with your heel. But being able to push it to a guy, that would still be on the balls of your feet.
Gotcha. Well, good luck with that. I know Carlos Hyde was one of Urban Meyer's guys back in college, and he knows the system. So maybe that's why he keeps going back to him. But yeah, that's got to suck.
Yeah, but you can't play those games in the NFL. You got to actually play to win. So, but anyway, that was just something interesting to talk about. But I also want to bring up the fact that I'm noticing that maybe Devonta Freeman is pulling out the last bit of juice that he has in the tank, because he has been looking decent and looking like he has some level of juice left in the last couple of weeks or so, when watching his games and watching the way that he moves. And for fantasy purposes, he's been more than adequate. Looking at it here, here we go. He's had, in weeks, in November 7th, he had 16 points. November 21st, 20, and December 5th here, 20. So he's been actually coming up with some pretty good games fantasy-wise. So we'll see how that continues to go for him. But I just find that interesting because we all thought he was done, and he actually is showing that he has something. I don't think he has anything for next year, but he has something for now. Looking at the bench, nothing would have changed their fates. I see you dropped a bunch of guys here after that game. So whoever was here, they're no longer there. Logan Thomas, he sat on the bench for me, but he did pretty well. But it doesn't matter now because he's hurt now. Apparently, it could be an ACL, MCL thing for him. And Tyler Boyd, this week at least, he had 5 receptions, 85 reception yards. He did very well. And that is the end of what we have for the 3 and out. So now let's just go ahead and get into the standings here, so we can look at the playoff picture and how things may shake out going forward. All right, so Lombardica's Prime and Indie Animals both lock up the playoffs, seeing how no team can catch up to them now. 11-2, Lombardica's Prime is locked into that number 1 position, and he will receive a bye. Indie Animals, on the other hand, has to win this week to get that bye, because if Big Trust wins and Indie Animals loses, Big Trust automatically moves into that 2nd position, and he will have the bye week due to him having a much higher score in the points for category, and I do not think Indie Animals will be able to catch up there. But on the other side, you have FTW, Raw Dog Supreme, and BoomerBus. All these guys are combined with a 7-6 record, and there's only one real team that is viable to knock somebody out of position, which is I Love Cam Newton. I Love Cam Newton has the ability to remove BoomerBus from that final playoff spot that he almost locked up this week. Because if BoomerBus does not win this week and I Love Cam Newton does, I Love Cam Newton would have to outscore BoomerBus by 40 points, and he will now have that 6th spot, and BoomerBus will be on the outside looking in. It's not looking good for I Love Cam Newton, but there's still hope. And hope, that's all that matters. And for the rest of this team, it really doesn't matter what they do, win, lose. So no real need to talk about it. So now let's get into the final part of the week here, which is the week 14 matchups. I guess we should just start with the top, right?
Yep.
So we have Explicit Word Fantasy Football Gods versus I Love Cam Newton. Explicit Word Fantasy Football Gods is 5-8. He's currently sitting in 9th place. The best he could do to finish out the season is get into 7th place. But hey, like we said earlier, if you're not first, you're last. So all this does is help people talk less shit about him. So looking at it here, Kyler Murray goes up against the Rams. That's not a great matchup. Jamar Chase goes up against San Francisco, but Jamar has been absolutely trash, so might as well just count that as at its best, it could be 10 points. Devontae Adams going up against Chicago. That has a high potential. We just talked about James Robinson and what's going on down there. Patterson, that's a big deal. So, and on the flip side, Odell Beckham continues to not give very much in the way of fantasy points, but Cooper Kupp continues to shine. Dak Prescott needs a rebound game, and he may get it against Washington football team, whose defense has not been the greatest on the season overall, but has been a little better in the last couple of weeks. My pick for the win is explicit word. How about you?
Yeah, I'm also going to take you for the win. To be honest, it comes down to this flex spot. Like, you got Kenny Golladay. I don't know who he's going to pick up from the waiver wire, but I could already tell you that if it's Osborne, he's not getting them because I'm going to use my last waiver wire to fuck somebody over. And unfortunately, it's about to be you. So with that being said, hey, you ain't going to the playoffs either if I could do anything about it. So I got you taking this one, Mark.
Yeah, like at this point, all I could do is play spoiler, and I guess that's what I'm going to do here. I'm looking to block, so it is what it is. Hate, indeed. Your player got hurt, goes up against Big Trust. So your player got hurt, has Joe Burrow in San Fran. You have Deontay Johnson going up against Minnesota here. Ooh, you put AJ Brown is in the IR. Why is he? That's weird.
So what happened was, in order for me to drop the people that I wanted to drop, I had to have a certain amount of starters. So I just pulled them off of the injured reserve to put them in there.
Oh, okay.
But he'll be going right back.
Okay, understood. So this team isn't complete here, but Tom Brady and them going up against Buffalo. Buffalo defense has just they've been on the higher end of middling. So they're good, but they're nothing to be feared, especially not by a Tom Brady team with these two wide receivers.
Well, where's the game going to be played at? Because if they're back in Buffalo and they're going to have another horrible win resistance like they had on Monday night, things could get different because I don't think the running game for Tampa is as good as the Patriots. So that could be interesting.
Well, here we go. It says versus Buffalo. So this is at Tampa, but here's the weather for this game. Scattered showers with a high of 74 degrees. So it's more than likely a chance of rain, but outside of that, it should be a regular Tampa weather day.
Gotcha.
See, and that's another thing to really like about Yahoo, that they show the potential weather for these games to help you make an informed decision. So
indeed.
And then you have Saquon Barkley, James Robinson. John fucking Connor. Yeah.
The Terminator, huh?
Yeah. James Conner. And looking at this is tough. I'm going to go with my albatross pick, and I'm going to pick Big Trust, but I want your player got hurt to win. I do not want Big Trust to get the bye week and have the easy road throughout the playoffs. So
Well, I'm picking myself. I'm here to try to fuck somebody over in some type of way, and this week is going to be big trust if I can help it. I know it's not looking very promising on my end, but I can tell you from now, I'm trying to pick up Osborne and some other people who should have some good lock-ins. Hasty from the 49ers, I'm going to be trying to go after to pick up since 49ers are going to have no other running backs. I'm going to try to put up points. It hasn't been very great for me, but for some reason, usually when it doesn't matter anymore is when your team peaks. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case so I can put somebody in a fucked up position.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just having a conversation earlier today with Sean. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. But I was having a conversation with him that I bet you that my team goes on an incredible run throughout this entire playoff series when none of their games matter. I was like, I bet you I'll score everybody that is actually in the playoffs for the rest of the season. But I'm not in the playoffs, so it doesn't matter.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Uh-oh. Haha, technical difficulties, and we're back.
So, but yeah, let's look at the bench. Nothing really there. I guess he could start Mooney, but T. Higgins is the guy that he should be starting every week. He should have been the guy that he was starting most weeks anyway this season, but it is what it is.
Mark, before you move on from the benches, I did notice that as we're going on, I think one of the huge problems for this entire league that we had, not enough people played the waiver wires. The teams that are in the playoffs right now that are hurting, they didn't play the waiver wires. A lot of their key players now are out and can't make a difference, and they missed out on making those key pickups to help their teams. Now, the teams that's on top, like Labartimus Prime, they played the waiver wire, and they were able to stash those really, really good players, which are making their team starting to look a lot better than they probably should be at this time. So that might want to be something everybody looks forward to going into next season. Because if you look at the benches now from the last couple of weeks, the benches have been horrible.
Yes.
As far as putting points up. So I think that might be a case. Looking at Indiana's team, looking at BoomerBus team, and looking at Labartimus Prime's team. They played the waiver wire, and they played it excellently. They haven't been scared to make trades at key points and pick up some people and play them over the bigger names. And I think that's what helped them get over the top.
Yeah. It's very fair to say. Now, moving on to BoomerBus versus Corey's championship team. Corey's championship team has a chance to play spoiler and lock the doors on BoomerBus here, because that's all he could do. Seeing how Corey's championship team no longer has a chance at making the playoffs with that loss, and with BoomerBus getting that W. So now what we're looking at here is Josh Allen going up against Tampa Bay. Lamar Jackson needs to turn his season around in a big way against Cleveland. Justin Jefferson going up against Pittsburgh here. Myles Gaskins is on bye. Dallas Goedert is on bye. That kind of sucks, except for he does have A.J. Dillon, who has come alive as of late. Going up against Chicago, that's a massive deal for him. And then I'm assuming he'll be starting DJ Moore in that last position there. So, holy crap. You know what?
What happened?
I'm picking Corey's championship team for the spoiler.
That's who I was looking at. I actually like the force of going to have to play DJ Moore. Carolina got rid of their offensive coordinator, and I think that's going to make a huge difference. They're going to try to play to the strengths. I can't believe Cam Newton not last week, but the week prior, only had 3 plays where they actually used him rushing, which is like crazy because if Cam Newton can't do anything else, he can fucking run. So when you're not playing to his strengths, that's kind of like your fault to lose the game. Also, I don't like the divisional rivalry between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas. I never like playing people who have rivalries against each other. That's always dangerous. But on the plus side for the boom factor of the BoomerBus team, I do like the Mike Williams play, especially with Keenan Allen going to be out. The only scary part about that is they can target to give the double coverage to Mike Williams for the New York Giants. But at the end of the day, it's the New York Giants. Are you really scared of that?
Well, the New York Giants passing defense is actually pretty decent. It's just everything else about that team is horrible. And when you don't have Keenan Allen, they will start double teaming your best guy. So we'll see how that works out. Justin Herbert is a good quarterback, so we'll see how he works that out to get Mike Williams the ball anyway, or will he just move around Mike Williams until they stop double teaming him and then try to give him the ball?
The good thing for Mike Williams in this game that could help BoomerBus's team is that New York Giants is on the third string quarterback, which usually isn't a good sign.
Yeah, so he might have a lot of opportunities.
He might have a lot of opportunities because the New York Giants defense might tire out by the second half from being on the field too much if things go wrong.
Yeah, that's very well may happen. All right.
And my last thing that I'm worried about for BoomerBus's team is he no longer is going to have Nick Folks to rely on. Nick Folk has been a huge factor. Has been a huge factor for him. That dude has been so money this entire season. When you have a kicker who's putting up 15 points, he might as well be a damn wide receiver. That is phenomenal return. I think that might have been the sneakiest play that he's had on this team this entire season.
Yeah. And you know and you talk about the waiver wire play. Nick Folk, this was a mistake that dates back in my season. Nick Folk was actually on my team, and he came up limp in this week here. I think it was in week 4. He was hurt, and they said he wasn't supposed to be playing, and so I dropped him because who's going to keep a kicker that's supposed to not play, you know? So, and he turned up to play, and I guess a week later, Sean picked him up, and he's been money for him ever since. So next matchup is Raw Dog Supreme versus FTW. Raw Dog Supreme is in 5th place, and he actually has a chance to jump up a little bit here. I don't like what I'm looking at. Like,
this is going to be an ugly match.
Yeah. Like, I don't like what I'm looking at for either one of these teams, especially at the running back position. Like, this is hideous. Ty Johnson and Matt Breida. See, Devin Booker. Ugly. FTW does have Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce has been
very pedestrian.
Yeah, pedestrian. Thank you. That's the correct term, pedestrian. So yeah. Can I not pick somebody for this week? Like, is that a possibility?
I mean, I'm not one to make someone vote if they don't want to vote, so I'm not mad at it.
I don't like it. I don't like either one of these teams, honestly. Like, if this came down to making a bet, this would be one of the games that I'm like, I'm not making a bet on this game.
I'll say this. For this one, I'm going to pick Raw Dog Supreme. His teams never really look good on paper, to be honest, but somehow they put up fucking points. It's hard to go against that when it's just something that's been proven. Him not having Jonathan Taylor and Jalen Waddle is huge because they're usually the ones that usually, get him going. But I think, DeAndre Hopkins and Elijah Moore might be able to hold him down. The only pick that I don't like too much is the Russell Wilson pick, only because this is a game where Houston has been getting destroyed by running backs. And, well, you saw, as crazy as this sounds, the running game for offense is what got the Seahawks going last week. So I would expect them to go back to that, at least with Rashad Penny and Adrian Peterson. But we shall see. If I'm being 100% honest, though, and I'm not keeping bias in, I have to go with FTW for – actually, no, the hell I don't. This team doesn't – he got a divisional game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going with Raw Dog Supreme. I favor that team over. Brandon Ayuk, it doesn't do it for me. The Mark Ingram pick, unless you hear something about – no, because he still got fucking Taysom Hill. Yeah, I like the Raw Dog Supreme pick. I just like that one better. If anybody wins it for him, though, it'll be Matt Stafford for fuck trying to win. So we'll see.
Yeah, like FTW was so hot coming up to this point, and then he took one injury, I believe. Yeah, like he took he took two injuries, and it just changed the entire outlook of his team. He took the injuries to his running backs, and immediately the outlook of his team changed entirely. Losing Alvin Kamara and Swift changed everything about how you felt about that team. So moving on to the next team on the list here, we have Labarticus Prime versus We Not From 750. Labarticus Prime, yes, as he does, left some positions empty, and We Not From 750. Aaron Rodgers is going to be in that position there. But I'm going, there's really no reason to review this. We have the highest scoring team versus the lowest scoring team on the season. Labarticus Prime all the way. How about yourself?
Yeah, I got Labarticus Prime. The biggest deciding factor to me is the Chargers game versus the Giants. You got Herbert and Eckler, and yeah, those two haven't gone bad for Labarticus Prime at all, so I expect them to just go fucking ape shit come Sunday.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, and lastly, we have our last matchup of the week: Indie Animals versus Reese's Buttercup team. Reese's Buttercup team has a chance to play spoiler this week and hand a loss to Indie Animals, and knock him out of that second position, so he does not get a bye. This is all in her hands. She has Patrick Mahomes this week. No Damian Harris, who has been her best running back that she's had all season. And on the flip side, he actually is going with Ryan Tannehill against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stephon Diggs is in Buffalo going up against Tampa Bay. These wide receivers are not impressive in the least this week. I like I like his running back situation now. So looking at it, yeah, looking at it here, I'm going with Indie Animals still, mostly because Adam Thielen more than likely is not going to play. So she's going to have to go with somebody else here, and I don't like her other options. So I'm going with Indie Animals here, mostly because his running back situation is the real deal versus all of her situations being up in the air. How about yourself?
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. Indie Animals should walk away with this with a clear victory. There's just too many X factors on her team. Terry McLaurin's not really that great right now. All her running backs are not very good. The Zach Ertz thing, honestly, I wouldn't play him. Probably put Conklin in over since they're without Adam Thielen, but then who does she replace Adam Thielen with? It's just too many crazy situations she got going over there. Then her biggest fucking player, Pat Mahomes, has just been disappointing this season. He started off hot, and then I don't know if he forgot how to play football or what the hell's going on with KC over there, but it's not something I'd be looking forward to.
Right. Yeah. So go ahead. I'm listening.
Oh no, that was it. So yeah, I got Indiana was taking the win, and to be honest, you couldn't have got a better opponent with Keenan Allen being out with COVID. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah. This was the best time for her. I mean, she's not going to make the playoffs now because of that. That tie will keep her from having enough wins to make the playoffs, but she has a chance to play spoiler in a roundabout fashion. So we'll see. Now, alrighty. So stop the share. All right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of this episode. It was very short. We do not have power rankings for you this week, but that's all right because we pretty much know what it is at this point because we know who's pretty much locked into the playoffs. So power rankings don't matter as much. We know who's on top and we know who is on the bottom for making the playoffs. We already explained everything else. Now it's just time to see how things play out and which teams are going to play spoilers. And we do have consolation matches. So there's a chance that one of the teams that are currently in 7th place could end up in 3rd at the end of the season. So we'll see how that works out. But anyway, with that being said, I have nothing left for this evening. It's time to, I guess I'll be in all black throughout the playoffs because I'll be in mourning for my team. Fantasy football has not been my friend this season. And it is what it is. It all started when I had the 7th pick. Ladies and gentlemen, you never, ever want to have the 7th pick in the draft. Ever. Unless you're like in an 8-team league. But especially if you're in a 12 or higher, the 7th pick is garbage. Like, it's the absolute worst. So, hey, it's life, though. You're going to have a garbage pick sometime. And you're going to have pitfalls on your team at some point.
I was just a shitty manager this season. I'm not gonna lie. There were some games I could have won, and I outsmarted myself. For example, last week I had Michael Gallup, and I dropped him because I didn't know what was going on with Amari Cooper and the rest of them. Had I had him, that would have been the 12 points to give myself the win over you. But I still wouldn't have made the playoffs. But little things like that, holding on to fucking Ben Roethlisberger for two starts, holding on to Farrah or whatever the hell his name is, Farrah for early in the season and not getting someone who was actually producing at the time. So I can honestly say for me, I beat myself. And if I'm going to be more like Michael Jordan, I didn't really lose. I just ran out of time. So it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, man. I guess my shitty manager moment of the season was actually against you in week 2. I played in a panic move because I did not believe in Sam Darnold to begin with. DJ Moore did not do much of anything in week 1, and Laviska Shenault did have a good game in week 1, and I started Laviska Shenault in week 2 and sat DJ Moore on the bench, and sure enough, that was the reason why I lost that game. And pretty much that loss is what's keeping me out of the playoffs. That loss, which was completely in my control of what I did to get into my own head, is the reason why I'm not in the playoffs today. That was my biggest shitty manager moment of the season.
It happens, man. It happens. All I can say is write down your mistakes that you had from this year and learn from them. Because if you don't, you're going to probably repeat the same mistakes again.
Oh yeah, what I learned from this season is that I will never. I've already said it before on a previous episode. I'll never make a trade again. ever. Never going to make a trade again. That's dead.
See, Mark, I think that's a bad thing for you to do because it wasn't that you made a bad trade. You just gave up too many pieces to get that trade.
But I hear what you're saying on that portion, but my problem is that it all comes down to that none of those pieces would have mattered if Jamar Chase did not be butt. If he did anything but be butt, then I would have won those games. But because he showed up, it was like, oh, since you picked me, and now that you're relying on me, I'm going to be an ass.
Let's be fair now. But if your other players that you didn't trade away weren't playing like butt, you wouldn't have tried to trade them in the first place. So it's the same. It's the same. How does that idiom go? It's the same side of the coin or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I traded away those pieces to get him, and lo and behold, Antonio Gibson had 21 points this past week, and he had 20 points the week before that, and the week before that he had 16 or some shit. Meanwhile, since I had Jamar Chase, he's been absolutely ass. Like, so it's just like, well, not the moral of the story for me is clear that live and die with the team that you brought. If you don't pick it up from the waiver wire, then live and die with it, because you're just gonna. It's been my experience that I end up trading away, even though he plays like ass when I have him, or maybe he's not playing up to the standard that I need him to play. But when I move him, that's when he's going to play up to that standard. So,
you never know. We'll find out next year. We will find out next year.
Oh.
Something tells me you'll be trading next year. Something tells me you'll be trading next year.
Listen, no, I will not. I'm not making trades, and especially seeing how there's only a few teams in this league that's willing to make like rational trades. It won't, like, I won't be doing that, like, because you'll never get a rational trade from Charles. Charles will never send you a trade that makes sense. Like, all his offers are, how can I fuck you over and I get good players? Like, that's pretty much how he sends out trade offers. And when it comes to coach is like, well, if you look like you could actually win, he's not going to trade with you. So there goes another one. And then you have Tobias. Tobias, like, he pays attention, but like, he locks in on his team. He doesn't really do much of shit. He doesn't do anything in the waiver wire. He doesn't do anything in the trade market. So that's dead too. Like, like I said, it's not a whole lot of teams that you could really.
Well, myself will make a solid trade. It has to make sense for both of us because I'm not doing a one-sided trade. Same thing for Darius. Darius will do a trade that makes sense. Sean always makes trades that make pretty good sense. I may not like the players involved, but as far as making up, like the makeup of his team, he'll make good trades for that. You're getting better at trades, but this year I think you went extreme. That shit for Jamal Chase, I would have never given up all of that.
No, you could, but like I said, you could say that, but it all comes down to if Jamar Chase continued to play the way he played in the first half of the season, none of it would have mattered. He would have did exactly what I needed him to do. But because he said, I'm going to play the exact opposite way that I played in the first half of the season.
But see, that's more of you, though. You went all or nothing. You can't really do all or nothing sometimes in a game of stamina, because this is a marathon.
But in this game where I had DJ Moore, who I'm like, dog, you are costing me games. Like, DJ Moore was legit costing me games, and mind you, I had Cordero Patterson and James Robinson. I'm like, so I can't start all three. I can't start Antonio Gibson and JD McKissic. I can't start them both because I'm not pulling out James Robinson and Cordero Patterson to start both of them. Like, that's not happening. So, I had to make a choice to where something I could start consistently. And Jamar Chase at the time came available because the other team needed running backs, and it just didn't work out. So
it is what it is.
Yep, it absolutely that's what it usually comes down to. It's just it is what it is. So, but we will see what happens for next season. Hopefully I'm not picking in the middle again. Like I don't. 7th pick is just the worst. It's the worst.
Remember this from now, viewers. I'm going 0 running back next year. Every year that I go 0 running back, I usually have the best fucking seasons and I at least make the playoffs. This year I tried to go running back, wide receiver, and never again. Never again.
Yeah. Just football in general is getting to a place where you have to put less stock into running backs. So, like, it is what it is. Like, but anyway, that's enough of that. We have another regular season week, and then then these episodes will start getting real short because it'll be playoff time, and it won't be much to talk about at that point except for the matchups in the actual playoffs. So, yeah, man. Appreciate you guys for watching, listening, talking about it amongst yourselves, because you don't talk to us about it, but we would like for you to link, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. Thank you. Peace.